I gotta learn to tone down my. Okay, the clock says 2:30, so we will call this meeting of the Oklahoma County Retirement Board to order. Roll call, please.
Brandon Holmes.
Karen Prince Thompson.
Mark Michaud.
David Hooton. Michael Taylor for County Commissioner Brian Mon.
Butch Freeman.
Donna Jackson.
Keith Block.
Okay, thank you all for being here. I consider today to be a very important and a very interesting meeting. So possibly it's going to take a little while, so we're going to continue to move on. Notice that this meeting was properly posted on Friday, March 25th. At this time, if we would please, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mr. County Clerk, if you don't mind.
And salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which is one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, the next item would be approval of the minutes.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. Any corrections, comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Minutes are approved. Items 2 through 7, I believe it is 6. Items 2 through 6 are the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
It is approved as presented. All right, now we move into the departmental items, and the first is the Aoki forfeiture history and projections. Item number 7. Hello, Danny.
Hello, good afternoon. We ended the month of February with a balance of 1.2 million in the forfeiture account, and just projecting out the rest of the year based on what's happened so far, we project we'll end up with a balance of about 1.6 million. There's an item, the very next item on the agenda is redirecting another 400,000 out of the forfeitures to the DB plan, so that would get our balance down to about 1.2 million by the end of the year, which is still a very sizable balance in this fund. This board might also consider maybe moving a little more than just the 400,000 that's on the agenda, maybe at a later date.
Okay, do we have that for the audience? Do we have that that form?
It's attached to the agenda. If you pull it
I
up.
understand that, but I'm not sure everyone in the audience may have that. I think we all do, but there we go.
There we go.
It's also an eye test.
It's one of the big TV in the back.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions for Danny?
Motion to approve. Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve the report as presented. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Next is discussion possible action. Danny just mentioned this, the redirection of retirement contributions in the amount not to exceed 400,000, transfer from contribution to the defined benefit.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. No questions, no comments. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Now we'll go into our retirements. The first is discussion possible action, the defined contribution retirement and health benefits for Margaret Smith. Who is Margaret assessor? Yep, I'm sorry. Yep. So she's over in the jail in Central. Okay, anybody have any questions or comments on this? Everything is in order?
I'll motion to approve. Second.
Okay, motion and second to approve. All in favor? Aye. Congratulations. Next, item 10 is also defined contribution, retirement and health benefits for Nancy Welch.
Motion to approve.
And that's the one that's with the assessor, okay? All right, we got a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Aye. Now, items number 11, and we have a speaker who wanted to address both items 11 and 12, Mr. Bob Ravitz. So Bob, you can address them separate or you can address them both at the same time. That would be up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make sure that the contract with Bank of Oklahoma, there's some ambiguities that I want to make sure that there's no question that what was put in the RFP is actually what's in the contract. The first one deals with the cost to the for the those that participate in the brokerage fee. It doesn't look like there's any cost.
Excuse me, Bob. Could you give us a reference on the page?
I will in a sec. Yeah.
Oh,
The only reason why I think there's an ambiguity, I thought it was pretty clear originally in the RFP that you could do one of two things. You could either go with Bank Oklahoma's brokerage or go with a brokerage that you chose. And the way I think the contract is written, it's just for Bank Oklahoma's brokerage. And I don't have a problem with that, except for the fact that at least in that Bank Oklahoma may be charging for that. I don't think they are because it's not in the contract per se, but it does say here on page 2, the bank may either receive asset-based or transaction-based fees for services provided in accordance with Schedule C. So I was concerned that that might allow for payment of transaction fees for buying stocks and whatever.
We're not gonna pass along.
I understand that. Excuse me just a moment. Be okay if you would please come forward. We can't hear you from up here. And that'll make it easier for Bob to address you and us at the same time.
Absolutely. Hello, my name is Paul Pesmuller. I'm with Bank of Oklahoma, and to address your specific question, transaction charges within the self-directed brokerage account, any costs incurred for those trades will not be passed on to participants.
Right.
Who pays for them?
So we will.
You absorb this. Okay.
Then the second one, I just wanted to make sure because I didn't know exactly. TD Ameritrade allows you to purchase bonds, CDs, and if you meet certain criteria, covered calls. Will that also be available in your brokerage account?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, great. I'm on a roll. The third one is obviously some of us who write covered calls are a tad concerned on the length of time for the change. Do you just have to ACATS from TD Ameritrade to Bank Oklahoma?
That's correct. Yes, it will go to first.
So it won't take as long as mutual fund.
Correct.
What was the terminology you just used, Bob?
ACATS.
And what is ACATS? I know what a CAT is, but what is ACATS?
In kind, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a means of transferring in kind.
Yeah. So we don't have to sell something and then
Fantastic.
rebuy it.
And
Okay.
then I'm hopeful you say yes to this, but there's a provision. Currently, we can't transfer money from the mutual fund part of the account to the brokerage account without calling. Do you have an ability to do it electronically? I'm just curious.
Yes, we do. Yeah. So I didn't know if that's a procedure that's currently a limitation that's part of your current arrangement, or if that's part of your brokerage policy as it's written.
I don't think it's part of any of the policy. I think it's just,
I think
That's
people do
what-
it both ways.
yeah.
Yeah, Gretchen.
Not sure. I think that one time. And I think that the retirement board developed a policy on that type of investment. As the board was concerned about people doing that, and not being fairly sophisticated about it. And so I think they wanted people to call in, so investors.
I remember something about it, and it was just a step deal so that when somebody opened up the outside brokerage account, that it was truly that part of that was also so they understood they absorbed the due diligence liability on it. They absorb the risk, and if you do it electronically, then I'm afraid that you take away the due diligence. And again, if you remember back when they first set these up, the number one concern was, do you understand completely that if you take $50,000 out of your current 403B or 403A and move it to the TD Ameritrade account and you buy high risk stocks in the alt tank, it is not this board's responsibility. You chose this on your own. This was outside the deal. And I know that there was a question about it. And of course, the people that were standing up here, remember also Gretchen says, oh, we're going to do this. We know what we're doing. But we also had a fear at the time.
Well, we had a few people who really urged or doctors or competitive extensively about the program. Sure, the people who are approached appear to be well versed, knowledgeable, but you've got a whole county population who may or may not be well. Not be a good choice to be.
I don't, I tell you, and I won't. Click the wrong button.
Let me back up a minute. I think is that when they first opened the account that they had to, I think we asked them to either sign off or verbally sign off that they knew what they were doing. And I think once
that needs to be, to continue to happen.
I think that waiver was intended to be before they even opened the account for them in TD Ameritrade, that they had to have the release in hand, waiver, whatever you want to call it. That piece of paper had to be in hand before that could even be done.
Right.
And also,
And all I'm asking is, once you've already done that, because InvestTrust didn't have the ability to transfer it electronically. Once you already did that, you had to make a phone call. All I'm saying, once you set up the account, can you then just transfer, like you buy one mutual fund versus another one online?
you have to be vested, right? Isn't there also that contention? Right.
Does it have to be all or nothing? Could we do
No.
it where there are some individuals who do feel confident enough to be able to do that could do it on their own?
Yeah.
It's limited.
Except-
You have to sign the waiver.
Right. It takes 5 years to be fully vested. You can't do specific stocks
That would
until
hopefully
then.
eliminate the majority of employees then who don't feel comfortable enough or who might erroneously get in there and do that.
So you have to go to
Oh, no, not vesting. I mean, like only if we only allowed the electronic function to those who specifically requested it.
Yeah. And I can comment on that. So with our SDO account, we will have a form that has to be signed, and we can include whatever type of disclosure or waiver that you want. We can absolutely make the form exactly how you all want it. Currently on our platform, if a participant does have a self-directed account, they can make those transfers of cash in kind, and or transfers of cash directly into the SDO, and we can put limitations on that to make sure that we're in compliance with the plan. And then they can also call our Participant Services Center in Tulsa, and our Participant Services can help them as well with SDO, and we can make sure that they have the language and the knowledge about the waivers. So
And for those who are watching and for the chair, what's an SBO?
I'm sorry, self-directed account. It's our brokerage
Okay.
account.
So that's the one that we have Danny Lambert's picture on, if I recall.
Well, it makes sense once the agreements and once we move over, it probably is a good idea to revisit the brokerage policy because there are other limitations that I know that you all put in place, which are great, but just make sure that there's still items that you want to incorporate. So I think it's worthwhile to revisit the brokerage policy.
Yeah.
That would not preclude us from going ahead and approving the contract as written today.
The money market sweep for the directed brokerage account, is that the same money market as will be in the general account if you didn't have a directed brokerage account, or is it separate?
The answer would be no, because it's a stable value fund inside of the main retirement plan. And so you can't offer a stable value in a sweep vehicle. So the sweep vehicle will be separate inside the SDO account. But it'll be an institutional share class sweep vehicles.
Okay. Is the stable value account the same one that the county currently has?
Yes, we're bringing everything over in kind with the conversion, and then moving forward from there. Then we'd start talking about funds and what the retirement board wants to do with that.
Okay. With regards to the stable value, there was nothing that said anything. Well, I guess since it's coming over in kind, nobody will lose any money on, and they don't have to hold the money, right?
Yeah, it'll transfer. Everything will transfer over as it is now, and then we can have conversations after that with the investments and our due diligence and go from there. But everything will come over in kind and remain the same. And since we're doing it in kind, you won't be out of the market for a day.
Okay, and then, so in other words, all funds that are currently exist in our platform will at least initially exist in your platform.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so they'll all come over in kind, right? That's my only questions. I think it's a very well-written contract, and I think it covers, there was one other thing I just did want to note. So it said services under the agreement shall commence, and then, okay, that's okay too. Yeah, I think it's a well-written contract, and I want to let everybody know I support it. Thank you.
You hear that from Mr. Ravitz? I am absolutely elated. Thank you, Bob. In all seriousness, Bob, again, let us thank you for the many years that you provided and the leadership you provided for this retirement board. And I rest assured that once this had been finalized and put on here, that you would read it word for word. You obviously have. We thank you for bringing all that up, and we thank you, BOK, for your approaching and being able to answer the questions. I won't even say they're concerns, but just the questions. So thank you. Okay.
Is
Yes.
now a good time to do these amendments? Next one, okay.
I do have one quick question. Now that we get this agreement that we've talked about for the last couple of months, and the computer people are involved, what's our timeline? What's this contract to sign?
620.
We're still shooting for 6/1.
Could if we
I
could.
just want to make sure this date is still good.
So, yeah.
I think there are going to be a lot of questions as we get into this. So.
Sure. I was reading the 6/1 deal, and I'd sitting there going, I didn't know if this had been updated since it's taken a little bit of time to get the contracts.
We just provided that to John this morning, so that is the tentative conversion timeline. So we are on schedule for a 6/1 conversion.
Is InvestTrust on the other side ready for their end of it? I'm going to ask the question, so you might as well answer it.
Yes.
And
That was,
just to be clear, it's 6/20. The week of 6/20 is the last day of conversion, correct?
Sorry, so the 6/20 is the tentative live date. And so because we're bringing everything in over in kind, that usually takes 7 to 10 business days at the fund companies for them to be re-registered. And so we won't be able to start our final conversion record keeping until we have all the funds over, but then we'll have invest trust records. And so 6/20 is the tentative live date for the plan to go live at BOK.
And we will never be out of the market as an individual retire, or individual member.
No, sir.
but you cannot, for how long will they not be able to transfer between funds? Is that gonna be, are we gonna be dead for 20 days?
Yes, give or take 20 days with the in-kind conversion, yes.
Okay. That's the question I was more thinking of, is if anybody thought that they were gonna make any transitional makes, they need to be notified that the last day they can make a change in their mix of their funds is on the 1st, and they can't touch it again till the 20th.
David,
Yes, sir.
I think that's a very valid point that we need to get across, is that emphasize, number one, is you will not be out of the market, but you will be frozen from the standpoint of being able to change your investments, if I understand that correctly then, for
Yeah.
that 20-day period.
Yes, absolutely. And so, and we'll work with John on putting together a conversion notice for participants that we will mail out. And that will explain in there in detail that, during the blackout period, when it starts at Investtrust through the time the plan goes live. And again, 6/20 is just a tentative date. It could be sooner than that, depending on how fast the mutual funds come over via in-kind transfer. But yes, we'll explain that in the notice that, you're going to be unable to make trades or process any transactions during this time. And so make sure that your investment allocation is set how you want it to be. And then we can work with John and the DA on the language and the retirement board.
All right. Are there any other questions? Yes. Oh.
Just a comment on the effective date of the agreement, so that it's in line with the timeframe and what we just discussed. It should be written as effective June 20.
So when the agreement's approved, if you could approve it with an effective date of 6/20, because that field is blank currently on the agreement that's on the agenda.
Would they need to make changes prior to 5/29 when Invest Trust freezes?
Yes.
Okay, so really before 5/29 is when they would have to make their changes.
And I'm sorry, but Invest Trust owns, yes, you have to explain it.
No, yes. So the participants in 5/29. So again, we're going to work with Mark on setting the blackout date on their end as well. 5/29 is the tentative date that we used in the sample that we provided. And so any participant that wanted to make a transition or transfer their investments prior to, if 5/29 is the date that Invest Trust can do, then they would need to do so prior to when the plan enters blackout over there.
Is it, just out of curiosity, just because I think 3 weeks is a long time, is there any way to pre-notify the mutual funds of what we're doing and have them on alert so that this can be done a little more? I'm sorry, guys, I think 3 weeks is a little bit of a.
Yeah,
long
3 weeks.
period.
3 weeks is longer, and so, but the in-kind transfer is going to add 7 to 10 business days typically. But we'll work with Mark, and we will work with our mutual fund trading desk out of Tulsa to make sure that we can expedite this as much as possible, because we want the plan. We want the plan live as soon as we can get it live. So we understand the importance of being able to make transactions and transfers, and so we'll do everything we can to get it across the finish line as fast as possible.
All right. Any other questions? Are we ready to get into the contract, or you have?
Yes, I'm getting into the contract.
Okay, let's wait till we will bring up the experts on that. Are there any other questions, general type questions, before we get into the contract? Hearing none. At this point, I would like for Mr. Jim Prince to come forward. I would like for Mr. Wilkerson to come forward. I'd like for both of you up here by this microphone so we all can hear. Lock the doors and get the sheriff in here.
Do we motion to approve this first?
What are we approving?
We're still discussing.
Still
Just
discussing
discussing.
We haven't even really got into the discussion. So the answer is no.
Okay.
All right. Over to you guys. Jim?
Yes. So we've got a draft agreement. This has been discussed. I believe it's consistent with the bid and the requirements that we have, including consistent with the prior agreements with the Invest Trust. So I'm here to answer questions if anybody has them about the contract. I can walk through it if anybody wants.
Now, what is the status of the contract with BOK? I was told a few days ago that BOK has signed it. Is that true? So what BOK has done is you have approved it. Okay, so the current version of this contract, you're comfortable with. Are we comfortable with it?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
This is going way too easy. Are you sure?
So when do you want the
think
amendments?
On the 457 plan. not
Okay.
this one.
Okay, and then, again, I'm gonna ask the DA, it meet all the state statutory requirements. Okay, thank you.
And Mark, you had a question?
It's a very minor question, and it has to do with the reporting. And on page 17, it said it was going to give a sample of some of the reports, and it wasn't attached. But the only thing I wanted to do was to make sure that I'd requested about a year ago that there was a report that gave information about the number of retirees that are in the system and how much is invested on their behalf. I don't need to have details, but I know that Mr. Hooton was in favor of it, and I would defer to him to, make arrangements on that if he's still in agreement.
Sure.
Would that be?
It just gives us a number and an amount. It doesn't give us the identity, and we're not trying to do. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions specifically directed to the words in the contract? If not, I am ready to accept a motion.
I so move.
And I was going to give you the chance to do that. I really was.
I'll second it.
And I second it.
Can your motion include the effective date of June 20th?
We have a lot of.
The effective, now I'm going to backtrack. The effective date should be June 1 because that's when really we're starting our work. So the contract does need.
Okay, I accept that. It's June 1 effective date.
All right. And Donna seconded. It's best that we have our two outsiders do all of this. So
We can be blamed for it.
That's right.
okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the contract as presented that you should have there in front of you. Are there any further questions or comments? Legal?
I thought I had to make some amendments to the
That's the
contract or
457.
not. Okay.
Right. Actually, and that's a good point because only the board can approve the contract. Okay.
We recommend approval is what it is.
That's what we're doing, is recommending approval to the Board of County Commissioners. Another body we can blame if it goes to hell in the handbasket. Thank you, Mike. Okay, any other questions? All right, so are there any other questions or comments on the contract before we call for the vote? Hearing none, I would like to have a voice vote.
Yes.
Please identify yourself and yet.
Brandon Holmes, yes.
Karen Prince Thompson, yes.
Mark Michaud, yes.
David Hooton, yes.
Michael Taylor, yes.
Butch Freeman, yes.
Donna Jackson, yes.
Keith Block, yes.
Anna Dix, yes.
I would like to, and thank you all, and a special thanks to all of the people who put in hundreds of hours on this. I would like to personally thank Mark Williams and Invest Trust for the many good years of service that you've given us. Hate to see you go, understand big companies and your directions changing. Look forward to many, many years with BOK, and especially look forward to being so close to you that you can't run and hide. And neither can we. So thanks to both sides. Again, this is yeoman's work. This is, and I want to thank again every member of the board, and a special shout out to Bob Ravitz for his comments today and for his input. And what?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, Jim did.
I had lots of good.
I'll tell you what, that's why we paid him astronomical. No, we didn't. We didn't pay him hardly at all. But he did, and thank you very much for bringing that up. This contract, Jim Prince, again, thank you, Jim. You have just done yeoman's work for all of us.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
All right. I think then with that, we are ready now for item number 12.
457.
Oh, the 457. That's exactly right.
Sure, we received this agreement just right before deadline. We went ahead and posted it. There's a few revisions. I passed out the revisions if you want to work through those with Jim that we need to do before we approve.
Can we make them all at once? I can go through them real quick, or you can.
Yeah. There, and by the way, the form of contract is essentially the same as the agreement that we have for the 401A plan, with the exception of the things that need to be different for 457, and they're highlighted, or should be highlighted, and I can walk through those as well. So I'm here to answer any questions and allow you to go through the amendments.
Okay, that we delete the documents are not confidential.
Right.
That'll be deleted on all pages.
Right.
The effective date will be 6/1/22.
Correct.
We, on page 13, item 5 and fees, it will say as compensation for its services hereunder, bank will be paid fees by the participants, Strike County.
Correct.
Do you want to delete the in event? In the event the
That
county?
sentence there,
Yes.
it's not necessary. Yeah, we could delete it. It's not necessary. It's not something that is that
Okay, we would delete the sentence
Yeah.
starting in
in the event the
in
county.
the event the county chooses to engage, all the way to the end of that paragraph, which ends with selected to manage a portion of the 457 plan assets.
Correct.
And then on page 22, under contributions, do you want to delete the county asset also?
Just to touch on that briefly, the county remits the employees' contributions, the monthly contributions for their 457 account, and that's what that's speaking to. So I'll let Jim advise if that's necessary or not.
The county is not the clause in there that the county will be responsible for depositing, facilitating deposit of contributions on a timely basis. That's really to say that the bank is not responsible for that. So we could revise that by amendment if you wanted to say the bank will not be responsible. I mean, if that's, but I think the county does make the deposits.
Okay, legal, I think, has an input. Legal? I'm sorry, say that again, Gretchen. Gretchen, you have such a beautiful, light voice.
And we have a hum behind us from computers, so we can't hear.
That's also true.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I review contracts, I write notes because I want clarification. If I'm confused, then I assume that somebody else might be. So this was a confusing paragraph to me. I wanted to make sure it just wasn't accidentally a cut and paste from the other one. So in explaining that line, that makes more sense to me. However, the following line, it says that the county will be responsible for ensuring that the funds are contributed to the trust. I don't believe there's a trust here.
Yeah, we do have a trust.
457 is a trust.
It is a trust.
Is it now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I just didn't
So,
understand
and
the
the
mechanics.
retirement board.
We have the 457, because it's a deferred comp, the county has a fiduciary responsibility to transfer the funds. And so And so I think that's what it's kind of covers, their fiduciary responsibility to transfer the funds.
We have yeah.
We have 2 trusts. This is the 457. Right, the 3 457s, yeah.
No, no, you got this,
I know.
you got your contribution, and then you got your cash,
Yeah, okay, now.
and that's true trust in my mind. And that's what.
So we,
What money's coming out. Whole different group.
so we would leave this as is.
I believe so.
Okay. And then going on to the next page, page 23, on payments and fees, the second sentence would be deleted. Such fees will be billed to the county periodically. The county shall either promptly pay such charges or direct. That would be deleted. And the rest would be the bank shall withdraw.
Yes.
Correct. And that's all I have.
I believe that is all.
Are there any other suggested additions or deletions? Be okay? You're good? Okay. I think then that we would be ready for a motion, and I believe again, the motion would be as we did prior on the 401 Alpha. The motion would be to present to the Board of County Commissioners with the recommendation that they approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
With
With
the
amendments.
as listed.
As amended, yeah, as
As
amended.
amended.
So we have, do we have a second?
Yeah, me.
Oh,
We've reversed roles.
okay.
You let him get the big one.
You want to vote?
All right, let's do a voice vote on this one again. Start up with our deputy.
Brandon Holmes, yes.
Karen Prince Thompson, yes.
Mark Michaud, yes.
David Hooton, yes.
Michael Taylor, yes.
Butch Freeman, yes.
Donna Jackson, yes.
Keith Block, yes.
Anna Dick, yes.
Motion passes. Thanks again to all of you who have put in so many hours of work in on the 457. Nothing changes then, David, from the county's perspective in that if you're invested in a 457, the dollars will come out. I mean, it's not in your pay and then the individual has to send it over.
No.
They'll take it out as always. Okay. All right. We have now gone through 11. We've gone through 12 at this time. Since we have passed the defined contribution retirement plan, it's time to amend it. Go, John.
Good afternoon. Mr. Prince developed this amendment that's on the agenda that addresses 2 things. The first thing is employees that return within 6 months from terminating employment that aren't vested. Currently, under statute, an employee has to be here 5 years to be vested. It's 5 years or nothing. Okay. If an employee leaves now and comes back within 6 months, their money's gone, but their vesting years continue. So the first thing this amendment does is to those employees that return within 6 months that aren't vested, the county will return and restore their account. Since September of 2019, I did a report to look back and see how many employees were affected since September of 19 to present. There are 15 employees that had that scenario. They came back within 6 months. They lost their account balance. The grand total is $125,000 for those employees, an average account balance of $8,300. With the forfeiture account balance, there's plenty to cover those amounts. So we ask that you approve that.
Okay, let's discuss this.
Well, I mean, all this is doing is helping us with retention of people, correct? Because as before, like I had to run for office to become vested, but some people, they leave after a few years and then they might come back within 6 months, and they used to lose that 2 years that they had going towards their vestment. This would just allow them to be gone up to 6 months and then still retain. They
would get their funds back.
Their
right?
funds back.
And that means that we can't give the funds away for 6 months, meaning we're going to have to keep everything and wait till the 7th month. And if they don't come back, then we can transfer the funds and do whatever we want. But that's the only thing I saw that was really kind of important.
Yes, sir.
okay, so with this change then, be okay, will you be able to do that? Will you be able to, A, track the funds for the required period of time, and B, reinstate those if they do come back? Okay.
And then the second part of the amendment, are there any more questions on the vesting?
Just to confirm, so
Sure.
the example you gave was 15 employees. Are those 15 employees under this will be allowed to,
Or
or
this is only moving forward. If the
Moving
board
forward.
approves it, it would be moving forward, and we can't go back and restore those accounts.
Okay,
I
I was just confirming.
misunderstood you then. I thought you said that we have sufficient money to pay for the 125,000, but that's not what you're saying?
No, this amendment, the example I provided was, were historically, what dollars amounts have we encountered with these type of situations? So it's not a huge amount dollar-wise. That's what my example was in regards to. This amendment would be only moving forward as approved. It wouldn't be retro back to employees.
So as of today, people would,
Yes, sir.
could leave for 6 months, but it doesn't go back.
As of today, you can come back within the 6 months, but you do not.
So what happens, let me lay it out if you want me to.
Please.
Currently, an employee that's not vested, that's been here 5 years, they leave, they have a year to come back. If they don't come back within a year, their vesting's gone. They have to start back that 5-year time frame. If they come back before a year, their money's gone, but their vesting years of service count that they earned prior. Yeah, and this would change it. If they came back within 6 months, their account would be restored and they wouldn't have those funds forfeited.
The account would be restored at the value at the time they left.
Correct.
What happens to the money for 6 months? It's going to increase in value, hopefully. Don't they get to retain it?
No.
Currently, it's just deposited in the forfeited account.
And I sure don't want that, because if you do that
No,
on
I
the
know.
upside, then we're going to do the downside.
No, I understand that. That's why I want to talk about that for a second. Because, so we're in essence, you're freezing the asset and keeping it at a stable value, and it's being put in a separate account. And then if the person returns in 6 months, within 6 months, they would be returned that at that value, even if it's at different market value.
They're not gonna get the same assets, they're gonna get cash, and then they gotta reinvest it. Because
Okay.
what you're gonna do is the date of termination, you're gonna take a snapshot of that account, and it's all going to cash at that point, because that's what it normally would have happened upon termination. So you're gonna have a cash dollar value at that point, period. Cash doesn't fluctuate unless the Federal Reserve goes sideways. So,
Well, they're going to raise, she spoke to our group last week, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, they said they are going to raise the rate. What do we do if it raises?
we still
Nothing.
freeze
It's
the
still-
account, we're freezing the
Okay.
account.
I got it.
It's just a snapshot. And in it, there are going to be some disadvantages in one way or another. If they decide to leave and then come back, the disadvantage is they lost the earnings for that period of time, whether they were in some high-flying investment account or stable value. We have to draw a line in the sand.
No, I think it could be a real good thing if there's a lot of inflation. Meaning their money is safe.
But
Right.
frozen in time.
I'm talking about something different. Right. No, I understand that. I just mean, I'm talking about an inflation rate that has, a dollar's not worth a dollar 6 months from now.
Let's make this complicated.
Okay. I'm not trying to make it complicated. I just want to understand that what we're doing with it.
We're all in
exactly.
agreement. We all understand what we're all saying,
Okay.
right?
I'm done. I'm good.
Do you want me to move on to the second part? Sure, go ahead.
Does the current rule still apply? So if you leave and you come back at 7 months, that the current rule still applies where you still get to use your vested years, but not the funds?
Correct.
So we're just talking about changing the first 6 months. The second 6 months still applies.
Correct.
So do we need to vote on just this part before we talk about the second? Okay.
And then moving into the second part, this is the retirement eligibility rule for retiring with medical. Back in 2004, the board changed it. So it said, starting January 1st, 2005, all employees hired after that date, age plus years of service had to equal 60 to retire with medical. Everybody that was hired before January 1st, 2005 was grandfathered in under the rule of 60. So what we're asking the board is to change it back to everybody for the rule of 60. Age plus years of service equals 60, then they get to retire with medical. On the amendment, there really needs to be one more sentence added at the end. Employees need to have health coverage at the time of retirement to be eligible to continue health. That was not on there, but an employee, that's the current rule, that when an employee retires, they can't get the health coverage unless they already are enrolled in it. So that's not on the amendment.
Do you want to add that?
Yes, sir.
And that's gonna cost the county a little bit of money.
Yes, and I did some examples. Do you want me to go over those real quick? Okay.
Sure.
Sure. So currently, under the current rule of 60, those employees hired before 2005, there's 206 employees that are eligible for medical retirement now that haven't retired. If we changed it to the rule 60 for everybody, it would add an additional 165 employees into the eligible for retirement pot for medical. Our aggregate cost is pretty low. If you put all the retiree costs in one bucket, our average retiree cost to the county is $8,620 per year is what the county spends. I look back at when the rule of 60 was in place, and we averaged 31 retirements a year back then when everybody was under the rule of 60. Since then, we averaged 33 members per year for retirement. So it's gone up about 1 or 2 people more a year. It hasn't drastically changed. That was one of the concerns on this. Even when the rule of 60 was in place, same retirement volume. We had actually held a few more employees back then too.
That was going to be one of the questions that I had. Is there any evidence to suggest that by changing the rule down to rule of 60 that more people were retiring? It sounds like it's the opposite is true.
Yeah,
It
you know,
sounds like
even though someone might be eligible, doesn't mean they're ready to retire. Because we have a lot of people that could retire today, a large amount that qualify, but they're not ready, so that they haven't retired.
most humans I know have got to eat.
Yeah.
So, personally for me, I can say in my world, we're used to, or industry standard at least, is a 20-year retirement where after that you get a check for the rest of your life. And I know there's some other things that play into that, but personally for the sheriff's office, it would be a huge benefit and huge recruiting tool for us. I mean, obviously there's probably going to be some kind of, cost to the county. However, for us, the cost of training is substantial. And we lose a lot of people. I'm sure juvenile does. I can't speak for them. I'd imagine that the jail does. I'd imagine that a lot of people go to 20-year retirements and retirements that are a lot quicker than, trying to be a cop in your late 50s, trying to hit that rule of 75 or whatever the case currently is, which is rule 75. So that's just speaking for me.
I'd like to bring up one thing in that this also means that, like myself, if I'm not here next year, I would still be able to retain my insurance at the county and not buy state insurance. So that's true, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just want everyone to understand.
Because
the county has great insurance.
Of what Brandon said, but the recruitment piece of that alone is so substantial in both of our departments for retention.
No, there's not.
Especially if we're looking at 21, 22-year-olds, to have them thinking long-term towards when they're, years of service plus age equals 75. It's really hard to get them to, understand that pathway and to think that long-term. But like Braden said, looking at relatively a 20-year commitment in there, it's a lot more close to home and it's a lot easier for us to recruit based on that. The money we would save alone in being able to keep people longer term with that kind of an incentive would be a big deal to us as well.
And the average age of all the detention officers is 39. I did check on that. So
I want to bring up one point when we were sitting here changing this before, and it's been a while. 2005, am I correct?
Correct.
If I remember 2005, the county was trying to find every nickel in the carpet to make this place run because it was a tight point in time for the county. Money was tight. You made a comment that I want to make sure I've heard it right. You'll have another 100, this was still going on, you'd have another 165 employees on this plan, potentially.
Potentially. But that doesn't mean, if we had a 50% increase, a 50% increase in retirement.
I was just using the number 100 because 100 times 8,000 is $800,000.
Yeah, if we had an increase of that, but that's something we had to watch and budget for. So what I would suggest, we watch the health plan very closely. And we made many changes since 2005. What we do would analyze it every year to see, hey, this is what impact this change has made. If it becomes too great, then we can come back to the board and say, going forward, we propose maybe the Rule 75 for employees hired after that date, if it became a problem in the future. Because the board can change those eligibility rules for new employees at any time.
I agree with you, John. Don't get me wrong. I agree. And I've sat on this board since '93, so I kind of understand the ebbs and flows. But what I was just sitting here telling the board, what I want to understand as part of this board is we do have a responsibility, especially when it flows back to the budget board and back to the Board of County Commissioners, that at the end of the day, the reason it was changed before was over money. And we didn't do this with a very light thought about it. It was brought to us, it was told us this, at the rate we were having people retire at the rule of 60, that it was going to go up. And if you think that by chance, and I just did the fast math, if there were 100 more people on that plan at $8,000 a pop, that's $800,000. And we got it. I agree that the budget board and the Board of County Commissioners are going to have to suck it up and figure out how to pay for it. But the other side of it is, do they start being contributory to it? I don't know. I'm just sitting here looking at what I remember when we moved it the first time from 60 to 75, that we did it because we were looking at it, again, we were looking for every nickel. And I want this board to understand that, yeah, I'm for it just like everybody else, as long as the Board of County Commissioners can find the money at the end of the day.
As one of the members of the budget board has to find the money, not the Board of County Commissioners. But as one voting member of the budget board, I've got no issue with this at all. It's for the good of our employees. I understand, I've been here since you have. I also agree what we've gone through, but as far as I'm concerned, and as the county treasurer, I think that this is a very workable plan.
I agree, because just the amount of money you lose in institutional knowledge is worth a lot more than $800,000 if you're talking about all 100 people. So, I think this is a very good tool to retain talent, and that's our most important asset.
And then next, if the board approves this will go to the budget board like it did back then, since it has to do with employee policy and budgeting, and then it'll go to the BOCC next.
All right.
So I ask if you approve it to amend and put a sentence in the last paragraph stating that employees must have health coverage at the time of retirement to retire with health.
Do you have all of the change? And now
it's all recorded. We've got it.
Okay. We've got it all recorded. So you're asking us then, I've lost track, 2 or 3, 4 changes that we're looking to do. You want those individually addressed or just in toto?
On this one, there's just one. And it's just adding to the Rule 60, which is the last paragraph on the amendment. And just stating, in the last sentence, stating that.
I thought we had the 6 months on here too. Am I wrong?
It's on there.
Okay,
it's already on there. Yes, sir. It's just that one sentence needs to be added just for clarification, so that when an employee retires and maybe they don't have health coverage, they can't just elect it at that time, that they actually have to have it in place at the time of retirement to be able to continue it.
I'll make the motion as of.
I'll second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion?
I would just like to say, when this was brought to my attention, I was kind of negative about the rule of 60, just because I come from a budget side. But I did kind of poll the county clerk employees, and it was 2 to 1 for the 60. And I represent the employees, so I just wanted the board to know that.
Thank you very much for that input. All right, we still have a motion and we have a second. Any other comments or input? If not, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that is the last item that we have on here, is it not? Are there any citizens who would like to participate?
Bob already spoke.
Yeah, Bob's already spoken. Hearing none, board comments. We'll start with the sheriff.
No, well, yes, I'd like to thank Bank of Oklahoma, thank all the people that worked on the contract. I know it's tiresome, all the people up here. So it's an exciting time for us, but looking forward to getting this thing implemented and pushed out. So I know my employees at least are chomping at the bit, trying to figure out where their money's going and how it's going. So it'll be good to get that information going. So thank everybody that was involved in that.
Karen?
I'd like to thank Invest Trust for all your many years of service, and you've been great to the employees, and I've had a lot of good service from you, and I know a lot of other employees have. And good luck in your future, and I hope be okay. You do as good a job.
I just want to thank everyone involved. This has been a very smooth process, and I think it was a very good process.
I'd like to thank BOK and Invest Trust and Mr. Prince and Gretchen for all the hard work, and congratulations.
Michael?
With the rule of 60, will you be counting down?
You know, with the rule, I have passed every rule we've ever had.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Hey, Gretchen, that wasn't you, was it?
I want to thank Gretchen for all the help she's given us. And the same thing with Invest Trust and BOK. I've got a great relationship with Invest Trust for the last 20 years. And then BOK, I work with you guys all the time too. So thank you.
I want to thank also everybody, and going back to when this all started and Chantel brought us the detail, and Jim and Chantel started this process way back. Feels like forever ago. But this process has been detailed, it has been diligent, it has been hit every cylinder that we could. And I do appreciate the fact that we have now got a new agreement in place that I hope will go for a long period of time. And as long as what we had with Invest Trust is that I hope that BOK can follow the same suit.
I just want to say especially thank you to Invest Trust. I want to echo the other comments from the board. They've been so good, especially with my employees being able to meet face to face and talk them through the process and help them understand everything that's going on. And we're really excited and look forward to having that same kind of a relationship with BOK. And I really just appreciate all the board's work on this, especially the previous board and the boards before, kind of leading up to this, making sure that we're in a good spot to move forward. And the reason we're able to do things like move the rule of age for retirement is because we're in such a good position financially. And I just want to say thank you for everyone's hard work.
Thank you, Hannah. I would like just to say in closing that over the last 2 years with Invest Trust that my investments have quadrupled. I expect BOK to beat that. Thank you all in all seriousness. Invest Trust, my gosh, you guys have just been wonderful. You know, and as Keith mentioned, today it seems as if it wasn't that long ago, but now it's been many years ago, 91, when this county went to a defined contribution retirement system and started with Prudential Asset Management Company. And then Invest Trust got into this business, so that suddenly provided us with the opportunity for a local presence and to include all the dollars being kept local. And now we've advanced. Invest Trust, as we mentioned earlier, is going a different route. And BOK is standing right there, a firm that we have had years of experience with, so we're very comfortable with them. But none of this would have happened had it not been for the many people who did such a great job on behalf of this county, with Jim Prince, with Gretchen Crawford, with Chantel, with all of our folks, John Wilkerson. And, you know, it's amazing the knowledge that we have in this county on something that is not only critical to every single member, but something that is complicated and hard to follow, and that is the retirement. So I just say thank you. All right, with that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you. Paul, are you going to stay with us with BOK and be like a point of contact? Do we get to request somebody else?